Welcome to the About Sex podcast, where we discuss
toys and cars.
well, some toys, but not cars, really, because we talk about sex.
Sex toys.
And my name is Josh, and with me, as always, is my lovely wife, Angela Skirtu. Tell us who you are, Angela.
I'm a licensed marriage therapist, and I'm an ASEX certified sex therapist. And today, our guest is Matthew Swango. I always want to say it really, really like over dramatic. So it's Matthew Swango, LMSW, program coordinator for St. Louis Effort for AIDS. Hey, Matthew.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yes.
So tell us who you are. What are you here to share with us
you.
today?
So my name is Matthew Swango. I am the program coordinator for St. Louis Effort for AIDS, and I'm a licensed master social worker. And what I do is I go out into the communities and I share safer sex information. I'm also in charge of condom distribution. So all the little sites that you see, the bars and clubs and stuff in St. Louis that have those little condoms in there, I'm the one who goes and drops those off.
They're just big
You're like
buckets of condoms.
Absolutely.
You're the
And
bucket.
lube. Don't
I was
forget
going
the
to say
lube.
the condom fairy.
Condom
Just
fairy.
leave them around.
Yeah.
You just
drop
shower
them
people
off
with
and shower
condoms.
people.
I've been called a condom fairy before.
But I realized, I'm like, is that okay?
Yes, it is. Trust me.
That's awesome.
Me too. I was totally blocking myself. I was like, Angela, is that politically correct?
It's okay.
It's okay. He'll allow it this time.
It's okay
This
if it's
time.
true. So
It's okay
yeah.
if it's
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So, cool. So you
So-
drop condoms around
Yep.
and you teach people about safe sex.
I do that. I go into different places. I go into schools, programs for people who just got out of prison. Anybody who will listen to me blabber on
Yeah.
pretty much is who I'll go and talk to.
awesome.
So I do that. I put on biopsychosocial programs for people who are living with HIV. And then I also do HIV and STI testing in the office and then also in an outreach setting. And then I do have a couple clients who I do therapy with as well.
Okay, cool.
What is biopsychosocial? Well, go back to that.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Thank you for asking,
Yes.
Josh.
So what biopsychosocial is we want to empower people with tools to live an overall healthy life, take a holistic approach. So we talk about biological, social, and then psychological factors that may impede having an overall healthy functioning. So we go and teach people what they can do to make themselves better and work on, the SMART goals and setting little goals that are attainable so that way bigger goals can happen.
Okay.
Makes
So
sense.
you're taking a holistic view of them as a person.
Absolutely.
Does it work?
It does work, and it's great to see people change and go from
She's just laughing at her own joke.
I
Let's
am.
give
I
her a
just
moment.
laugh at myself all day. This is
I
my
laugh
life.
too. Hey, you gotta laugh, and especially whenever you're talking about sex, and some people are like, "Oh, don't talk about that," and the big stigma that goes along with it. You gotta have fun with it.
Yeah.
And, and especially in the prevention department, everything's almost a dirty joke. So we
Yeah.
could talk about,
Well, we should talk about
Well, maybe we
Talk
should
about
talk
it.
about what are some of the dirty jokes that help people prevent bad sex or unsafe sex.
Yeah.
That would be bad sex. No. Here's a joke that we do in the prevention department, I guess. One of my coworkers, he brought probably the biggest, we call it a demonstrator at work, but it's a dildo. And
Demonstrator.
he brought the biggest one that
I
I've
see
ever
that being
seen.
a brand name for a
Yeah.
dildo.
The
demonstrator.
Yeah. It was pretty much the size of my arm, my
Oh, wow.
forearm, and it had a suction cup on it. So I wanted to surprise my boss, and it was around the holiday. So some people have mistletoe. So what I did is I took the
course.
dildo and I put it up and I suctioned it right to where in the doorway. And then whenever she went to turn the corner and walk, it almost smacked her in the head. And
that's
it
great.
was, yeah. So
Merry Christmas!
Yeah.
Is it like a Christmas mistletoe, only with a dildo?
that's what I
Right.
thought.
Yeah. Kiss under the dildo or the demonstrator.
Yes, the demonstrator.
Makes me think of the Terminator, actually.
It'll be back, but
Or perhaps it's like a Terminator if you really use it.
yeah.
That's cool. So, what are some of the classes you might teach?
So I teach a Life 101 program, and then that
Life
also,
101? Is
Yes.
that teaches people how to live?
Well,
101
people
level.
who are positive,
I
it's
see.
focused on that, and then it talks about, of course, medication adherence and being healthy, and it talks about drug usage. We go into that too because drugs and sex tend to be interlinked a lot.
Yeah.
And we also cover going to the doctor, how to prepare yourself, how to talk to other people. And then I talk about, I do a healthy relationships program. And then what that does is it teaches people how to disclose. So, and it's good for not only disclosing HIV status, whether you're positive or negative, but also like, you know, some people need to come out if you're gay and tell sex partners about those types of things. So,
or if they have other STDs.
Absolutely. Talking about that. And we do a lot of that where I work too, having conversations about, you know, what do I do if I have a partner who has something? And then, you know, something that's common is people get the phone call from the health department saying, hey, you know, you may or may not have been,
Oh, no, you don't want that call.
Exposed to something. Yes. So we try to help people navigate through that and reduce the stigma, because a lot of people think that, you know, oh, I've got this phone call and I might have been exposed to HIV, or I might have been exposed to syphilis, gonorrhea, or chlamydia, or any of the other STDs. But it's so common, especially in the St. Louis area, that we don't talk about it. People don't have the conversations, you know, that they should be having. People will go out to dinner and then they'll say, you know what, I had strep throat last week. But nobody ever says, hey, guess what? Last month I had gonorrhea. You know?
I have not had that.
Never had that first date conversation.
Maybe it's not during the appetizer. It's more of a dessert kind of thing. It's like, so on our way out, bye.
Just wanted you to know.
Just wanted you to know.
Have your tart.
Yes. So we help people facilitate those conversations. And also,
so how would you facilitate that? How would you tell somebody?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
What's a good way somebody would get into that conversation?
Well, it
Should
depends.
you do it at dinner in public?
I probably would not do it in public. That would be a barrier that we talk about.
Oh,
So
okay.
so
Good to
triggers would be something that would trigger you to reveal something, and then barriers would be something that would be put in the way. So we would discourage things like, you know, crowded restaurants, or if you're at your mother's house and your partner is there, and just different things like that. So, you know, the person in the environment, in the setting, and, you know, what would be the best environment for you to have this conversation.
So are you suggesting not Facebook?
Pretty much, yeah.
No, not a public post on Facebook.
What? Ridiculous.
Wait, do people do that?
I don't know how many likes it would get, but
They probably get a lot of the frowny faces that are crying.
Well, we've had a few family members who've come out as gay on Facebook, and I don't
Yeah.
know if that's a bad one, actually. I think
No.
it was helpful to them, because the
Yeah.
people
Well,
who
I
are
think-
supporting actually say, hey, good
Yes.
for you, and the ones who don't just don't mention
Yeah.
anything.
Or they
Yes.
get blocked.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
luckily people are passive aggressive
I think
enough
they
that they're not
probably-
going to say it to your face. I hope.
absolutely.
They probably come out to their immediate family members, and then it's more for everybody else. Like,
It's like,
here, I'll put it
look,
on
so
Facebook.
you know,
Yeah.
as a side note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very empowering to do stuff like that
Yeah.
and just say, hey, you know what? You know, this is me, you know, take it or leave it. And same thing with the HIV status, that people want to say, you know, hey, I'm positive or I'm negative. Sometimes it feels a little bit like a double-edged sword, that people who are negative are like, well, I don't really want to put it on Facebook because I don't want to make my positive friends feel bad. You know, but it also, on the other hand, it encourages testing and being up to date with your sexual health. So we do encourage, if they do want to put their status on Facebook, we also give away little cards that'll say, you know, negative and, you know, whatever. And then when you should come back and get tested again. But
It's kind of like
Kinda
when
like
you
an
get your
oil
oil
change.
change, they put the
Yes.
sticker on your
Yeah.
window.
absolutely.
Oh, that's really cool,
yeah.
actually.
And people put that on Facebook, and it goes over quite well, I think.
That's cool.
So how often should people be checking for
So
STDs?
it depends.
And who, of course,
Yes,
you know.
absolutely. So if you consider yourself to be a little bit more of high risk for sexually transmitted infections,
And what would that be? What's high risk?
I'm glad you asked that question. And so according to the Center for Disease Control, if you've had more than one sexual partner in the past 12 months, you're technically considered high risk.
Okay.
So we kind of broaden our term of high risk a little bit to where if you are engaging in sex with quite a few partners, and that's very subjective, you know, then you might want to get tested every 3 to 6 months. And then if you are maybe in a, you know, monogamous relationship, or you only, I'll put it this way, if you only have one sexual partner, because we know that other things happen, then you might want to go and get tested about once a year, just to make sure
Just
that
in
you're
case,
up to
because of
date on stuff.
infidelity. I mean,
Yeah.
I wrote a whole book on it this
Yeah.
year. It does happen, and not that we want people
That would
to
not
have
be
that.
the way you want to find
It
out.
isn't the way you want to find out, but
Yeah.
the reality is I don't
Yeah.
know.
It could
I mean,
happen.
you never know what happens, right?
Absolutely, because you can't be with your partner 24/7, and we know that
No, I've tried.
Yeah.
It doesn't work out.
We like each other enough that we probably
Yes.
could.
No, she tries to spend 24 hours with me, and I'm like, I need a nap. Go away.
Space, whatever, Josh. Well, no, but like actually, that's a common thing after somebody has cheated for a partner to ask, like, before we have sex, I'd really like you to check on STDs so that I know I'm
Absolutely.
safe. And I think it's a perfectly fine request.
Yes.
You
So
know?
if somebody's in that situation, what they could do is it takes 3 months for the antibodies to show up on a test for HIV. So you might want to get checked right whenever you find out for a baseline, and then go back again 3 months later to get tested. But then for syphilis, chlamydia, and gonorrhea, if you go in between maybe like a 4 to 6 week period of time to go get checked for those, they're pretty much going to show up.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
of course, with
So
those,
it can be
those
3
are-
months before any tests can show that you have HIV.
Absolutely. So we have the test technology that we use. It's about a 95% accuracy rate in a 30-day period of time, but some people take a little bit longer to make those antibodies whenever they become exposed. So we have to have a 3-month window period there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay, cool.
Interesting.
Now we're going to talk about. No, I want to talk about
we
its
were talking
commercial.
about we were talking about how you have that conversation. So
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
kinda-
we are actually talking about that
Yeah.
too.
We got a little
I
bunny
lost
trail.
track.
Yeah.
so you don't have it in a public setting. You don't do it on Facebook. Where do
Yes.
you do it?
Oh,
Where's
yeah.
a good space
Where and
for
how?
it?
I think
And what do you
that
say?
having that person alone, and each one of these instances is going to be tailored to the specific needs, because depending upon the relationship that the person has with the partner, is this person just a regular hookup that you have sex with? Is it somebody who you're in an intimate relationship with? So those conversations would look very different. And what I would encourage people to do if they do get a phone call like that is to just say, hey, I got a phone call. They didn't tell me the time period I might have been exposed. So it could have been any time, because they try to trace back quite a while. So then that way they can.
That's a way of pulling the punch a little bit.
Yes.
You could be infected. You could,
Could
not. You
be.
never
I hope
know.
you're not, but you never know.
Absolutely. So they just
Right.
want everybody to go get tested. So framing it is, I had a former sexual partner, and potentially I could have been exposed, so I'm going to go get tested. And then I
Okay.
encourage you to go get tested too. Sometimes if there's domestic violence or something in those situations, and we may ask people to why don't you, pull back a little bit, go get tested yourself, find out what's going on, so that way you know your status, and then whether that conversation is even warranted or not, because we wouldn't want people to put themselves in a situation.
Is it
to-
something you should talk about on a first date, or when you're first dating? Because I always
So
think
that's-
about when do you
Yes.
bring up,
That's
if you
yeah.
are.
So you're talking about if you're
infected.
trying to date somebody
Yeah, like
new.
you're dating, and so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like I understand you want to disclose; it's important,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like, what's it gonna do? Is it gonna make us have a good relation? Are you gonna just
Yeah.
leave me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when
People
do you
worry
bring
about
it up
that,
when you're
definitely.
dating?
And that's a very tricky situation as well.
I figured.
So
Yeah.
for gonorrhea
Definitely.
and chlamydia and syphilis, I would probably get treated. If you haven't had sex with that person, you probably really don't owe them, any explanation of, you've had gonorrhea, chlamydia, or whatever, because you're actively, trying to treat it and get rid of it.
Don't have sex
And-
with them while you're
Absolutely.
infected, but it's
Right.
something that's
Absolutely.
treated or
Yes.
treatable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then for HIV, it kind of depends on the person. So some people like to disclose right off the bat because they put themselves out there and say, this is me, this is who I am. If you're comfortable with this, then we can continue. And some people like to get to know each other, maybe like the third date or something. So that way they can have time to bond and build a little bit of relationship with the person and figure out if this is a safe space to where I can disclose my status to.
Right.
And then
Because you
go
don't even
ahead-
know if you maybe want to have sex with them.
Yeah. So let's say you go on 50 dates a year, and then you do it on the first time.
Somebody's
every
a really
time.
good dater.
Yes, yes. Or on
That's a lot of work.
on the internet a lot.
Yeah.
People can do it.
know they
You're just
can.
swiping right on Tinder all
It's
day.
just like,
Yes.
wow, that's a lot of time. But I could understand if I were single, maybe.
That's a lot.
It's
Come
50
on.
dates. You're like, that's a lot of effort, and it's a lot of dinners to pay for.
It is. It is. So meet for coffee. That way.
For
it'll-
coffee.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, but I
Or
would
just meet
think
at a
then
park.
maybe you don't have sex the first time you meet
Yes.
to wait,
Yes.
get to
That's
know each
probably
other.
a good plan
Yes.
in general.
And then if you wait till
Some
the third
people have
date.
sex on the first date,
Sure,
honey.
I know.
Yeah.
We had
It
sex on our
happens.
first date.
No, we did not. Okay, yeah, we did.
We did.
You don't
Although
remember?
we were friends. We were friends
I knew
for a
her
while
for, like,
beforehand.
3
We had known
months,
each other for 3 months.
4 months.
So technically our first official date, I said I just wanted to be friends. So I didn't
we
have
were-
sex with him on that
But
date.
we were hanging out.
We were hanging out.
And honestly, it wasn't our
and then
first
we were
official.
friends for 3 months.
Hold on. It wasn't our first official date. We just happened to have all our friends ditch us,
Oh yeah, that's
and we
right.
just ended up on a date together.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then we got drunk and we had sex.
It was fate.
I'm so glad your dad doesn't listen to this.
But so I'm saying, I could
Yeah.
imagine, maybe kind of keep a little sobriety. Don't have sex on your first date, so that
Okay,
you're
you
like
just
making
tell our
sure.
sex life to everybody. Oh, love
We
it.
told that story on the show before.
I don't
you
think
know
we
it.
did.
We have.
Did
we
we?
have. Yeah, we've told it.
Okay, sounds good. Now you got me all blushing over here.
It's cute. That's because that's how he fell in love with me.
Aw.
Oh yeah, it was the sex. Is that what you're saying?
No. All right. So you don't do it on the first date, but you kind of try to put it out there as soon as possible.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that way, why build a relationship with someone and then be rejected after that? But I mean, again, that's a personal choice. So if
Okay.
someone wants to do that, they're more than able to do that. But sometimes it's a little more risky. And then if you're disclosing on the first date to everyone, and you're doing 50 dates a year, you've just told your status to 50 people.
Right.
So it's
That makes it.
things to consider. And in my healthy relationships program, we talk about the pros and cons, and then triggers and barriers and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Interesting.
So he does mention something that you were on some kind of commercial. Do you want
Yeah.
to talk a
Yes.
little bit about it?
So
So-
what was this commercial? So
Yeah.
first it started out. How did it start?
Yes, I was way back in the day. No, I'm kidding. So basically, I was in college, and then they asked me to come and be part of a photo shoot, and there were probably about 10 other guys there, and we wanted to try to eradicate syphilis from the St. Louis area. And so we were there. We were taking pictures. Everybody was doing, photo shoot stuff, things you do there. And then I thought maybe they were gonna, put me in an ad with a whole bunch of other people, and then all of a sudden, I go to the office and somebody's saying, "Have you seen the commercial?" And I say, "What commercial?"
Oh, no.
And they said, "Well, it's being aired on TV over in Belleville.
my
I saw it." So I thought, well, a lot of people are going to see that one. What the heck is going on? So then,
happening?
yeah, they pulled it up on the internet, and then they were talking about syphilis. And then all of a sudden, whenever it says basically, go get checked for syphilis, it pans right up to my face. And then my heart drops, and then it starts beating very fast. And then I remember that episode of Friends where
Yeah,
Joey Tribbiani is on there, and then he's trying to get a date, and then I think it's a herpes herpes advertisement,
Right.
on the big billboard, and then his jaw drops, and he's like,
He
"Oh,
becomes
crap."
the
You were
face
just the
for
most
herpes.
photogenic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's make him the face of it was gonorrhea. or
Syphilis.
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 You're
So-
the face of syphilis.
Yes. So
How'd that work out?
in the St. Louis area, so quite a few people saw it. Oh,
Did you complain to them or?
No,
No.
because they later hired me, so I didn't want to
Okay.
complain too much.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That
Yes.
was nice of them.
It was. And then we used the same photo campaign for our little safe sex inserts, and then it's like, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm a hand model now, so my hand is the one covering up the lips. So
Oh, okay.
if you ever want to look at our stuff and the condom packets, I'm a hand model. So,
Nice,
yeah.
nice.
good.
You've
You're
really
like,
reached
oh,
a
let's see
high
those
level
hands.
status
Hands.
here.
I'm gonna put that on my
And
resume.
it all started with syphilis.
Yes.
You're just like Joey. You're even a hand model.
Hashtag thanks syphilis.
Don't think
Freaking
syphilis.
me. It's funny. Oh my god. Oh man, I couldn't imagine that. But I mean, that's good though. Like
Yeah.
one thing that's really cool is just you're so out about it and just so happy.
Yes. I mean,
funny.
you've got to talk about it, and it's really great that you guys are doing this because we live in such a leftover puritanical society.
Yeah.
If we're not having these
we do.
conversations about sex,
Nobody
then
is.
somebody else is going. Kids on the playground, and we hear all these crazy rumors of do the jumping jacks, you won't get pregnant or whatever.
Yeah.
And like the earwax test. Have you guys ever heard of the
No,
earwax
tell
test?
me the
No.
earwax.
So
test.
I learned this probably in the past couple of years, and somebody else reminded me of it. So basically, if you're in the middle of having sex with someone, the myth is that you could go in your ear and pull out some earwax and then put it on a woman's vagina, and then if it bubbles or anything, then she has a sexually transmitted infection. If there's no bubbling or anything that takes
You're
place,
safe?
apparently it's fine. So
It'll never bubble.
I know it will never bubble, or hopefully it won't be bubbling.
If not, she's boiling of some sort.
Then we need to take her to the doctor for
Yeah,
a completely
yes.
different reason.
Yeah.
Got some exorcism stuff going
No,
on.
maybe
down there.
she's being burned because she's a witch or something.
Yeah.
Burn
No.
a witch!
I think her vagina's
That's
possessed.
another puritanical thing
Yes,
happening. No, I mean
absolutely.
it doesn't happen now, but it used
So
to
that
happen.
is a
It
myth
did.
that doesn't work.
Yes,
So
it
don't
does
put
not
earwax on
work.
your vagina.
We should learn
Yeah.
more myths. I know you talked to where I learned about some of what you did is at Foam, my speaking engagement
Yeah.
a while back. So you talked about all the different myths. So what are some myths people
Yes.
need to know about safe sex?
Yes,
and
another one that we
life?
touched on that night was condoms. So basically, the lambskin condom, people like to use it because there's more heat transfer and it feels more like some
Skin.
people say
Yeah.
natural sex, skin.
Right.
But what happens is the HIV virus is smaller than what sperm is, so HIV can penetrate through that membrane and sperm will not. So it will stop pregnancy, but it will not stop HIV transmission.
How is that still? How are they still selling those then? That doesn't make
I
sense to me.
don't know. I've never bought one just because I thought it would be awkward to put my penis in something that was in
Was
a
a lamb,
lamb.
yeah.
Yeah. So
well, I
Yeah,
mean,
we don't want to fuck sheep.
I knew a client who was using the lambskin because they're actually allergic to the
Oh,
latex.
yes.
So that's why
Yes.
some
There-
people are using
There's
it.
an alternative to latex and lambskin. There's another.
yes.
I forget what the.
There's
What is it?
it's like polypurethylene or
Yeah.
some weird name
Okay.
like
It's
that.
kind of like what they use
So,
for the gloves.
yes.
You know, for people
Yeah,
who are
because
latex
I mean, it's
allergy.
usually that's
Yes.
why. I mean, yeah, I know
Yeah.
there, some people are like, oh, we want the real feel, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's actually a latex
Right. Yeah.
allergy.
If you have
so-
latex allergy, yeah.
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
sense. But there's another alternative.
Yes, and
Okay,
it feels
that's good to
kind of
know.
like the lunch lady glove. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So there's
Okay.
It's not as good of a texture.
No, not
Yeah.
as much stretch, and it's a little bit thicker, so there's not going to be as much heat transfer. So
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So that's why. But so, if you are worried about HIV, then avoid the lambskin so
Yes.
that, you are protected. But that's why we have the other condoms. Are there any
Yes.
other myths we should know about in addition to condoms?
Well, one myth I think so there's pre-exposure prophylaxis, and what a myth has been
Which is?
so what that is a pill that you can take before you become HIV positive. So if we want to think about it in terms of drawing parallels to things that we already know, it's kind of like birth control for
Yeah.
HIV. There's also the morning after pill for HIV. So another myth that I like to talk about is people say, well, if people take this pill, then what's going to happen is people are not going to use condoms. So people are scared of that, and sexually transmitted infections will be on the rise. Well, it is on the rise, and what I believe the reason is because people are going in now every 3 months. So if you have to go and get tested every 3 months more often because you're, kind of highly sexually active, then you're going to be able to identify any type of infection sooner, So we're going to catch these infections, and hopefully, since we're being able to treat these infections, it's going to start to go down. So it hasn't really escalated a lot. It's escalated just a little bit,
I
but
think
not
it's because more testing.
Well, that and yeah, absolutely. People are access to healthcare. So
Okay.
these people were going in, once every 6 months, every year, or whatever. And now they have to go in every 3 months in order to stay on this pill. So,
Okay.
so I
Okay,
think
so to take the prophylaxis, you have
Yes.
to get tested every 3 months.
every 3 months.
Which then that means that the rates are going to show up higher.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's not, that's one of those correlation, not causation kind of things
Right.
where people are like,
Absolutely.
oh, because people are this is why
Yes.
it's higher. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Sure.
no, actually, we're just
And-
able to catch it quicker.
Absolutely.
But it's early enough. They probably need to study it more
Yeah.
to know
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
why.
Because
Yeah.
they say that, well, people are just going to give up condoms if they, start taking this pill. But we know the truth is the research is there, and only 17% of men who have sex with men, so gay, bisexual, and other people are, other men who are having sex with men, they're only wearing it for over a 3 to 4 year period. It's only they're only participating in using
Usage.
condoms for 17% of the time.
That is really low.
So that's really low. So whenever people say, well, people are just going to give up condoms, people aren't really using condoms a lot anyway. So we need to meet people where they are and give them the tools to stay HIV
'cause
negative.
That's like 83%.
Absolutely.
Not.
And it's on the
So
decline.
yeah, you might as well give them the pill. Yeah.
Yes. And these
Yeah.
studies are before PrEP came out. So it's not like we, were taking this after we give people the pills. It was before, people had access to these pills, and then condom usage is staying about the same.
Yeah.
So we're not seeing a big drop in condom usage if people are, using PrEP, but people weren't really using condoms a lot anyway.
That surprises me that that's so low.
Absolutely.
That's a very low number.
Well, if you think so, I'm not thinking of people who are always dating, but I am thinking of people who are in long-term relationships. Most people, when they're in a relationship with somebody for a long time, they don't want to use a condom the whole time. They start. You want it to be. I mean, like even in. Well, it doesn't matter how you're defined. Everybody, when you're long-term in a relationship, you just want to stop using condoms and be able to bang. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't. It doesn't seem that odd to me. I think it would be weird if I were in that dating pool and not using the condoms. But what, to each his own. And plenty of people have said they like sex without condoms, and that's a big piece of it.
People like sex without condoms.
Yes, Josh. People like sex without condoms. I encourage you if you're dating and you're unsure to use condoms. But the reality is that's why people don't. At least one reason.
Because we don't like how it feels.
Yes.
Because it feels nice.
Yeah. I would also encourage people to research, look on YouTube or whatnot to find out how condoms work, because we have what I believe is a false sense of security, and we think that condoms are like 99.9 some percent accurate. So that's very true in a laboratory setting. So if we set this up in a scientific experiment, they're going to be very, very, very effective.
You have a banana, everybody's putting it on, and you see it's correct, and then you shoot the sperm through the banana, and it's so safe.
Yes.
But that's in a laboratory,
in real life, what can go wrong?
That's how we tested, apparently.
So tons of things can go wrong. I don't know if you've ever tried to read the expiration date of a condom.
It's always expired.
Yeah. Well, I can help with that. But
always. They expire so fast.
but you can't hardly see
Where are you buying your condoms, Josh?
There's a guy.
The clearance section.
He just drops it. Some guy drops it at our house.
It's Dollar Tree.
Okay.
You get like 20 in a pack for $1.
All right, so first expiration dates can be wrong if you're not using it within the appropriate time frame.
Absolutely. And then if you're drunk, you can't see that. So
no, you can't read when you're drunk. No.
So user error is what you're talking about. What's going on?
So is most of it user error.
It's user error. People keep them in their cars and their wallets, and they can't get hot. So what the research from
if they get hot, it can damage it?
You are not supposed to
microwave
over
it?
100 degrees. Don't do that.
Don't microwave it. Why are you microwaving it?
I like it a little warm.
Some flavored ones. Oh, no. Get it prepared.
Yeah, you got to prep it.
You guys keep breaking me. I don't know what to do. Okay, so don't microwave your condom. What else?
Don't microwave it. Yes. Don't open it with your teeth or your nails. So those are some more common things.
Okay.
And your
teeth.
Teeth
don't
or
do the
nails.
teeth.
Yeah, because that'll make little holes and you won't know that you're scratching it. Yeah.
Oh.
So
wow, there's so many rules. I can't use condoms.
There are a lot. That's why they're only for condoms actually in a real world setting for vaginal sex are about 85% effective, and then for anal sex are about 75% effective. So that's way different than what we think of the 99% effectiveness rate that we think of what condoms can do. So that's why people can also partner PrEP with condoms, so that a way they can have a greater assurance that perhaps they won't become HIV positive or transmit HIV.
Yeah.
Well, and I was thinking one other way that it could happen is if you bought one condom like when you were 13 and then you're finally getting to have sex, but maybe it's like 5 or 6 years later and the condom is terrible and gnarly. That's what I would imagine it to look like after 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, and then also the heat from your body. So condoms can't be stored above 100 degrees. So your body's already 98.6. So whenever you put it in your wallet, it acts as an insulator.
Raises the temperature.
People were like, well, I don't want to keep it in my wallet because I'm not supposed to do that. So they'll keep it in the glove box. But then the greenhouse
effect 120 degrees in there. Yeah.
Yes, it absolutely goes over 100.
So, and this is not to discourage people from using condoms, but what it is to say is that, even
where
whatever
should you store them?
Well, yeah, where should you store them? But the big thing is that like condoms can still prevent pregnancies and STDs, but you need to also be smart in how you use them. You need to pay attention to condoms and their expiration dates, and you need to store them safely where? Not in your pocket?
Well, I would...
so let's say you're at the club.
I'm at the club, I'm dancing.
and you're dancing with your
This
partner,
is how
and
I
you're like,
dance.
"Hey, we're gonna go have sex soon." Where do you keep it?
What I advise people is, well, a woman could always keep it in her purse if she has something to protect it, because women keep pens and keys and all those other little things.
Switchblades.
God, all the things.
Yeah, so
It's got a switch.
and so
Okay.
you could do that, or what I like to do is maybe people can have like a bowl by their nightstand and then have the condoms there. You can have the lube there. So if you go out to the club and you're having fun, you bring somebody home, and then you're in the bed, it's already right there. So
there.
you got your little
Yeah, like a
buffet
candy
thing.
dish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, why don't you pick something?
Yes.
I like
Ooh, a
it. Then it's
green one.
sexy.
Yes.
Like, just how many people are you bringing back here? Enough to be good in bed, honey.
Yes.
Okay, but no, that's important for people to know, because like one of the things that is very important to me is like comprehensive sex education, especially
Yes.
for teens as they're growing up, because what abstinence only education is, they sometimes are putting scientifically inaccurate information out there.
Yes.
But one thing that is, I guess, kind of the way they're saying it, that's kind of true, but also like has a little turn to it, is that
What?
condoms aren't 100% accurate.
They're
not.
And that is true.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we can't use them to protect ourselves.
Correct.
That doesn't mean, screw
yes.
condoms.
No.
That's like
So-
saying a seatbelt will only save your life 50% of the
Correct.
time. Who
But
knows?
why we should just scrap seatbelts.
But you should just do.
No, absolutely.
No, I'd rather have a 50% chance of living.
rather
Yes.
have a better chance of
Yes.
living or having
Yeah.
safe sex.
And
Yeah,
if you
people are
find out
silly.
how to use them accurately, then it will be
Yeah.
above that 75 to 85% effectiveness rate. So, arm yourself with
Absolutely.
the information.
yeah,
Yeah.
that way then, yeah. So it's like basically don't throw the baby out with the bathwater here.
Absolutely.
Why are you throwing babies?
Oh, well, I know. I have a wet, critically injured baby now.
Yeah,
What happened?
Look what you did. You injured a baby and got it wet.
That's what the point is. Don't throw the baby. You throw the bathwater out.
Yes.
So we talked about condom usage. Are there ways other than penetrative sex to get an STD or
Oh,
to
yeah,
get
that's
HIV?
important.
Let's specifically.
Absolutely. Well, HIV specifically. So HIV is a delicate virus, and then what we have been left with is the images in our head that we think of the gay white men in New York who are in the hospital beds, and we see the pictures of them in the paper, and they're all the facial wasting, and people look like skeletons. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where we are left with, and then that builds a stigma, and then so we think that HIV is this big scary thing that everybody should be afraid of, whenever in fact it's a delicate virus. Transferring is kind of difficult but easy at the same time. So anal sex would be the number one way, and that's just because biologically the way that your body's set up. So HIV can't infect every cell, but it can infect the CD4 cells. So those are your immune system cells, and they live in your gut. So your gut, of course, is attached to your butt. So that's why it's so much easier.
I learned so many things.
And
Yeah.
the sperm swim,
And
they're
swim
great
right up.
Gut
swimmers.
is attached to your butt.
Yes.
Wow.
So if so let's say that no prevention methods were taking place. So we can prevent HIV by someone being undetectable, and then also condoms, pre-exposure prophylaxis, and post-exposure prophylaxis. If none of those measures are in place and somebody just has, random sex with somebody who has HIV and unmedicated, and let's say that they bottom, which is the highest, thing that you can do to contract it, and then so
Bottom is basically where you're receiving
Yes.
anal sex.
Absolutely.
Josh was like, "What's bottom?"
Yeah,
and maybe
sorry.
some of our listeners don't
It's
know
okay.
either,
Sorry.
so it's
Yes.
okay.
Thank you. And then so basically,
What's a bottom?
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
I'm not as versed on anal sex.
I'll break it down. So basically, if you get cum in the butt, so
Cum
when
in
it
the butt.
comes inside
Got
your
it.
butt,
Okay.
then you have about a 1 in 70 chance of contracting HIV. Okay, so that's the highest. All right, and then
And that's with knowing that the other partner has HIV.
has HIV and unmedicated. No PrEP,
No
no PrEP,
treated.
no condoms, no treatment,
1 in
no
7.
nothing. Yeah, 1 in 70.
1 in
170.
70.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a delicate virus.
Yes. So
Only makes 1 in 70.
interesting.
That's interesting. I thought
outside
it was
of
more.
the body it'll die, and then air temperature change, saliva neutralizes it, so all those things will make it so that HIV
So
kinda
oral
dies.
sex?
So oral sex, yes. So that is, the CDC will say that receiving a blowjob from somebody who's HIV positive is pretty much 0. So they won't ever say 0 for anything.
No.
So they'll do that like little
never
squiggly
know.
line 0, and then for somebody who is giving oral sex to someone who's HIV positive, technically it is possible, but extenuating circumstances have to happen. So let's say that the person is unmedicated and then you just went and had oral surgery and then you
have open wounds.
Yes.
Why
yes.
are you giving oral sex after oral surgery?
It's
You
a
never
treatment,
know.
one of
So
the
you-
ways
wait,
to manage the pain.
Do you
I
still
don't
have
know.
like the cotton balls back there?
You
You're
never
like,
know.
You're like, bring it over here.
I mean, hey, if people go to the emergency room for light bulbs in their butt, people will do anything.
I guess so.
That's
yeah.
true. But
So,
but
there has
if
to
you're
be-
giving oral sex, it's actually a pretty low chance too,
Yes,
unless there's
yes.
some sort of cut
Absolutely.
or
Absolutely.
like
So you have to have
open
an
wound.
open wound or
Yeah.
something
Okay.
like
something
that.
like
But
that.
for the other STDs,
What
not
about-
HIV,
what
there
about-
is a risk,
Here's
right?
one
Yes.
question. What about if they get it in your eye?
No,
Oh, that's
that's
an
not really a
interesting
good
one.
transmission.
No, it
rate,
won't transmit.
Okay,
Good
okay.
to know.
So come
I'm
in everybody's
good.
eye,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
You're fine. I know you've always wanted to do this. The more
My
you
eye.
know.
You broke me. I love it.
It's my PSA. Come in people's
Just take it
eyes.
in the eye. You're good to
Yeah.
go.
So what about the other STI?
So the other STIs would be
This has been a weird one, huh?
Yeah.
syphilis, chlamydia, and gonorrhea. And so what people, again, with, the condom usage or whatever, people are like, oh, well, everybody's going to get STDs or STIs because of, no condoms are being used. But a lot of people don't know that you can get it from a blowjob anyway. So whenever you go get tested,
Gonorrhea.
yes, gonorrhea and chlamydia you can get from blowjobs because they're site specific is what we call it. So if somebody goes and pees in a cup, then we don't know if you've got it in your throat or else if you've got it in your butt. So you have to get tested
They
in
have to
all
test
the places.
all the different places
Yeah.
to.
Oh, okay. So it could be here, all of
Will
them,
it show
and it
up
could
on-
not be in some
Will
places.
it show up on a blood test?
Absolutely. No, it's you could get the swab thing where they swab the vagina or they take it and shove it up your urethra. Of the
Yeah, that
penis.
hurts.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my
It
God.
does hurt.
That is so painful. I didn't know they still did that.
So we don't at our office. We do pee in the cup. So
Okay.
that's a good way to test for that. And then so that could be transferred through oral sex or basically any type of sex. And then also if somebody's masturbating someone and they get some of the juices on their hands, and then you could get gonorrhea in the eye.
Oh, you can.
Stuff like that. Yeah, because it's a mucous membrane. So if
Is
you're-
gonorrhea
Oh wait,
treatable?
so don't come in somebody's eye.
well, correct. Yes,
Correct.
because you could get gonorrhea.
Sorry, guys,
Yes.
I have to retract the earlier PSA.
So gonorrhea, treatable, yes. There is a little bit of myth out there to where I don't know if you've ever heard of the drug-resistant gonorrhea. All of the articles that have been floating around.
Little bit,
some.
yeah.
So
no. Huh.
basically, somebody he was a holistic doctor, prescribed like herbs and things like that to people. But he wrote an article and said that gonorrhea was going to be worse than HIV. I thought, well, how in the hell is that going to happen? Because it's not.
It's not.
So basically, people are scared of drug-resistant gonorrhea is what they call it. But what happens is if we can't treat it with the first line of treatment, we can treat it with the second. So there's not really going to
okay.
be a case where somebody is, going to just be out of options and your penis is going to
Right.
be dripping and burning for all of eternity. It's not.
Right.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Or your eyeball.
Yes, absolutely.
I was so worried.
Why are you
Okay.
so worried?
PSA back on. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes. So those,
You're funny.
Yes, the pee in the cup's a good way to get tested for gonorrhea and chlamydia, and then syphilis and also herpes. Those can be spread by skin to skin contact, and also HPV. So we want everybody to get vaccinated for HPV. Check the recommendations. They've raised the recommendations for some people. I know for men who have sex with men, they've changed that to 26. The insurance will cover it, but then that can
Why don't they cover it after 26?
because they think that if you've had more than like 8 or 10 sexual partners, you probably had HPV, which is true.
Really?
So yes, HPV, a lot of people, HPV is the #1 sexually transmitted infection that there is. There's over 300 kinds. So
wow.
yes, if you've had like 8 to 10 sexual partners, you probably had some form of HPV, but the body will expel that within about a 2-year period of time.
It's not a
Yes.
permanent.
Sometimes it does stick around, and it can lead to things like anal cancer and
Okay.
So
or cervical cancer.
Yeah,
Is it, that's the one that
absolutely.
causes cervical cancer.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
which is why it is important for people to just get immunized for
Yes.
it, because then
Yeah.
you can prevent it,
Yeah, a lot of people, like, same thing with, we were talking about condoms. They said, oh, I don't want to give my kid that vaccine, and then they'll think they can go have as much sex as they want. I'm sorry, I'm going to give my daughter that as soon as they let me.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
I don't want her to ever have to deal with that.
we need to put it
Absolutely.
out there that that's a leap in logic. Okay, so like
It's false logic.
it's if I do this, then
Flawed.
this sudden big thing's going to
Yeah.
happen. And the reality is, no, you're still
Yeah.
going to educate your kids,
And your
you're
kids are
gonna
still
teach
gonna
them
have
your
sex.
values,
Yeah.
and some of them are still going to have sex.
All
and
of
most
them.
of the people who want you to be abstinent had sex before they got married too. Just want to throw it out there. It was
Yes.
pretty common.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In the older generations, they also had sex with
Did they
Even though they
did.
talk about, oh, these young kids
Everyone
all.
I talk to, they're like, yeah, we couldn't wait,
Yeah.
but we sure tried. It's
And they
like,
are
come
still
on,
getting
people.
it on. The nursing homes have a lot of STDs
Yeah, they
and stuff
do.
in there.
They
So
do.
they're still getting
Because
it
they
on.
think, oh, we're old. We don't have to worry if we get infected. We're going to
Yeah.
die anyway.
Yeah.
It's like,
Which
it's
we
like
need
I'm
condoms
90.
there too.
Yeah.
By
No,
the
you
way.
need lots of condoms.
Condoms
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Sounds
That's that
good.
mindset when
No,
you get
it
older where you're
is.
like, I don't care. It's higher risk.
yeah.
It's kind of like when you're a teenager and you're over 80. You're like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so, but going back to the leap in logic, it's not that educating people, preventing STDs, or helping people make better decisions causes people to have more sex. That's a
Yes.
leap in logic.
It is.
No.
It doesn't
Or-
cause people to be shameless about their
No.
sex either. Although I encourage you to be as shameless about your sexuality as you like, because I do want people to love themselves as sexual people.
got it. Bunny trail.
No, because it's important too. But the point is that no, these things just help prevent things like STDs and unwanted pregnancies, and they help prevent people from making decisions that they regret later.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't understand the mindset where people hear, oh, this thing will help prevent an STD. And then they automatically think, oh, that's going to cause STDs, or that's going to cause more
No.
other problems. It's like wearing a helmet.
Yep.
How is a helmet going to hurt you?
And it's absolutely not true. So we know in countries where they talk about sex and then the STD rates are low, STI
They
rates.
talk about sex in
Yes,
other countries?
absolutely.
What?
Some-
Wait,
like
which
in
countries?
France and Sweden, all the.
What about Italy?
Actually,
I don't know.
I've
No, no,
actually
no.
I asked about Italy, and in Italy they said we're Italian, we don't have to talk about sex. They still have a very strong
okay.
Roman Catholic
Oh, yeah,
influence.
they do have the Catholics
and
there.
so
Yeah.
they do talk about sex among each other, but not in more of an institutionalized form. So there are some
Okay.
challenges with Italy.
So how do they talk about sex more there? Like in France?
I'm
Like-
actually not sure because that's not my
interesting.
specialty, but I know that they start at a young age. Like
Mm-hmm.
at kindergarten, they talk about the intimacy and whatnot. What does that mean to be intimate with people without
awesome.
even going into the sexual act? So that it's kind of building,
Right.
and then we know that the STI rates are lower, teen pregnancy is lower. So abstinence only does not work because our rates of teen pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections are astronomical compared to
Oh,
these
yeah.
other
when they're
countries.
doing
So,
comprehensive sex
yeah,
education and just
absolutely.
making it an open conversation.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
No, it's a
we
big
should do that
difference.
here.
It's
Yeah,
a big
we
difference
should.
when
Yeah.
you teach people how to be safe.
Yes.
It really is.
People are so insecure talking about sex.
Oh, I know.
They are.
Like anytime you bring up any sex at all,
Anything.
people are just like, why would you talk about that?
Uh-huh.
I'm like, dude.
And we should never be shamed
Come
for
on.
something that we're biologically programmed to do.
Exactly.
So-
Yeah, well, it basically creates a war within yourself.
yes.
And
As
that's
long
what
as
I
it's
do is help people figure out that war.
As long as it's among consenting adults.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
no,
you're
that's
good to go.
important. Well,
Yeah.
and that's, even with my infidelity book, that's partly why that is a problematic behavior, is that not every adult there is consenting, like if a bunch of people are having an orgy and they're all consenting, like have at it, people, but
Yeah.
that's the difference, is they're all having these conversations. And the interesting thing to me is when people have, let's say, more alternative and wilder lifestyles, they tend to actually be better at communicating about
Yes.
sex and advocating for safety and even talking about STDs beforehand. Like we had a person on here just months ago, Kevin Patterson, who said, I know if I'm having an STD conversation, I'm about to get busy. And I was like, that's hilarious, but it's
great.
true.
Yes. Yes. And it's with the myth of people are like, oh, well, you should go test. Pardon my language, the hookers or whatever, when we call them sex workers.
Yeah.
And, but they think that, they're the ones out there spreading all the HIV and sexually transmitted infections to everyone. But they're way more up on their sexual health than the general public because this is their business.
Yeah.
You know, if you start giving people sexually transmitted
you're not going to have
infections or something,
You
return
got to keep the
customers.
merchandise
Yeah.
nice.
Absolutely. So they learn things and share information with each other too.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's called like cheeking or tonguing or something, to where what they'll do is they'll put a condom on the side of their mouth and then they'll go down on someone. So whenever they give a blowjob, they're actually like putting a condom on somebody
Oh,
with
wow.
their mouth. And a lot of times people can't even really tell that it's there. So it's
And they're protecting
Yeah.
themselves and they're protecting you.
absolutely
Careful not to choke on the condom.
Yeah.
That would get lost in the back of your throat.
They get so good at it. See, it's, they
Yeah.
just
It's
know
a
how to-
skill you got to learn, I guess.
It is. Practice.
Well, maybe that's what we should do for better condom usage is just teach people how to cheek.
Yeah.
Like, oh, how did that get on there?
Oops, you're protected.
We can hold classes. Yeah.
That's funny.
And then talking about that, so there's flavored condoms, and then so flavored condoms should not go inside the body. Okay?
Oh, okay.
So a lot of people don't know that, and
I
then
didn't know that.
it's because it's sugar based. So
Oh,
women
yep.
will probably know what happens whenever
Get a yeast
sugar based.
infection.
Absolutely,
Absolutely. Or
Yes.
bladder, both.
Yes.
They can infect us on
Yes.
both sides.
Also, don't put ice cream in there.
Yeah,
It
same
turns
with-
Why
out
do you
poorly.
keep doing that, Josh? Totally a joke, guys.
It's all right.
It's all right.
Yeah, we
Continue,
know.
though.
Same with flavored lube. So lube
Flavored
that
lube.
has a sugar base, don't put that in the body as well. That's for masturbation or licking off your partner or whatnot.
And it's
But-
terrible, too. It's so sticky.
Oh,
It
they're
is.
so
useless.
I hate
It
those
is.
lubricants. They taste
I think
so
we used it
gross.
once, and we were like,
We were
no,
like, this is
good to go.
nasty.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
If people did want to put a flavored condom in their body, I call them diet condoms and diet lube. So if you read, yes, if you read the package, it's going to say aspartame
Yeah.
in there. So, but then that's how you know that it's not flavored with a sugar-based sweetener. So if you're in a pinch, and then you can
Those are
use
safe to put
something
in
like that.
the body?
Yes.
Interesting.
So if it's diet lube and
But
diet
aspartame tastes
condom,
terrible.
Oh, I
then-
hate that. I
Yeah.
do. I hate it.
Yeah.
Ugh. Ugh. Yeah. Even we have this one. My mother-in-law had sent us this jelly, but she got us a diabetic jelly, and I was like, "Why does this taste so terrible?" Oh,
Yeah.
'Cause I cannot stand the diet
Diabetics
stuff.
always give you sugar-free crap.
Please stop giving me sugar-free stuff. I love sugar. I want it all over my body.
I have dessert Fridays every Friday and treat myself.
There
So-
you go. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's about moderation,
Yes.
right?
Well, I don't moderate on Fridays.
No. Good to go.
2,000 calories.
That'll work.
That's a great rule. I don't moderate on Fridays.
People have their cheat days.
Yeah.
No, of course.
And Friday, a lot of times you go out.
It's
so
all chocolate. 2,000
Yes,
calories
but
of
you're
chocolate.
saying if
Really?
you're having sex,
That's a
then-
lot of chocolate. It is.
but don't cheat on your condom. Do a diet
Correct.
condom.
Yeah.
Correct.
The more you know.
Well, this is all really great information. Wow. What else do we need to know? Are there
So
any
what are
other
some
myths
other
or-
sexual
Yeah.
risk reduction techniques?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Is that what we're already talking about?
Yes. So we can using a lot of lube is important. So we know
Okay.
what happens is micro tears, especially with anal sex.
Mm-hmm.
Then we want to make sure that there's a lot of lube because then that reduces the friction, reduces tearing, and it also kind of coats it a little bit too, so it's less likely to
Probably feels better too.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
yeah.
And then
Oh,
people,
yeah.
we talk to a lot of people who are on meth, and you know,
do you?
It it dries out. It's always an interesting conversation.
It
but-
dries out the
but,
mucus
well,
membrane?
The penis and the vagina? Or?
A lot of people on meth aren't very hydrated, so I don't know if that plays into it
yeah,
too.
that's
but
probably right.
They're too busy
like,
doing meth to drink water.
Meth
Okay.
meth sex sessions tend to last a very long time.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to dry out on its own is pretty much the
How
reason
long?
why they can go for hours, like all night
okay.
long, and because it kind of reduces the urge. And
Interesting.
yeah, meth is kind of one of the scary things that's been introduced, and it's really taking a toll and making the HIV rates skyrocket.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
so
too
it's,
bad.
yeah, it's so that's why comprehensive and holistic approaches help reduce the chances of HIV transmission, whether you're positive or negative. So if we're helping to tackle that drug use and get that under arrest, then hopefully that'll stop HIV transmission.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Let's-
extra lube.
Extra lube.
Lots
of
Especially if
condoms.
you're taking meth.
Yes.
That explains 1995 entirely for me.
No.
I was actually a teenager then, or maybe even younger. Who knows?
You were a teenager.
I was 82, born in 82. So anyhow,
Okay.
no, whatever. So
Okay. Thanks for sharing your birthday.
And then
And?
you can reduce the number of partners. So
Yeah.
we know that some people don't like to use condoms at all. So if you've got 30 sexual partners in the past 6 months, maybe you
That's
can
a
go
lot.
down. Some people it is, and then
Is it? Okay.
And
No,
then,
and we don't want to shame.
No,
right?
no, no.
You know, 'cause,
I'm there's no shame there. There's
it's
just
more
more.
he's excited to learn.
No,
The
it's
time
when I
is-
say it's more like
the time
really?
investment.
That's a
that
lot
goes
of
into
work
that. Yeah,
to
it
get
is.
that many partners.
It is a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah, but
So,
hey, all power to you, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's somebody who's really good at hooking up. Like,
I remember.
They're really handsome or pretty.
Yes, there was one person I remember who had pretty much a partner for every day of the year, and then these are different partners. I thought, does this person work or whatnot? But
Yeah, how do they get the
it,
time?
It takes a lot of time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I have no clue. But
plus, I mean, yeah.
But reducing the number of partners, and then also, some people, we know that, a lot of people aren't using condoms, so increasing condom usage. If you've used condoms for 40% of the time in the past 12 months, if you can go up to 50% of the time or 60%, that's going to reduce your risk as well.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we meet people where they are, honestly, because having the shameful conversation of wear a condom every time or don't have sex at all or whatever, that's almost like abstinence only. So people are like, well, that, I messed up once.
They think it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
That's kind of the abstinence.
Yeah.
So
no, it's okay to mess up. It's okay to
then,
make mistakes. You just have to try.
What you're describing is actually harm reduction.
Yes,
Harm reduction,
Which
absolutely.
is, like every time it actually goes into the alcohol model too, but like anytime we drink, anytime we do drugs, anytime we have sex, anytime we ever do something that potentially puts us at risk,
Higher
we can
risk,
make smarter choices every time. And just because you make a mistake one time doesn't mean you have to keep making the same mistake or you're like forever broken.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right?
You can still find ways to reduce your risk.
Yeah, reduce.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll see that like with alcohol, for example, harm reduction techniques can be, I am going to take an Uber instead of drive my own car to a bar.
That's a good idea.
Right? No, it's just an
it is.
example.
It is. Nobody
It's
does that here.
small
Good
change
Lord.
that you can make to protect people around you when you're drinking. Or I'm going to walk
Absolutely.
to the bar if you're close enough to.
Yes.
So just examples. The same
Walk.
thing can be happening
This is
with
St.
sex.
Louis. Nobody
Yeah.
walks here.
That would really be nice walking.
Especially in the
Apparently
county.
I think you can get a ticket for biking drunk too, though. by
Yes,
the
you
way.
can.
And
Yeah.
Because it is still
lawnmowers and-
considered a vehicle on the road.
Yeah.
You're like,
You get a DUI with a lawnmower tractor too.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
and with a boat, you can also
Oh,
get
wow.
DUI
Yeah,
with
yeah.
a boat
Uh-huh.
because you can hurt people with
If
them.
it's in the
Yeah.
back of the truck or if it's in the boat. on the
And
water.
probably with
Yeah.
a plane too, but I just don't know
Yeah.
that many pilots.
Just park the boat.
Yeah, you lose your pilot's license with that one. That's not a good thing.
I'm gonna go fly to Spain.
We're going to California, everybody. Here we get in.
Autopilot.
Yeah, there you go. That's the reality. It's
Really?
all Google cars
It's
in the
become a
sky
little
now.
safer
Yeah,
now.
It's a lot easier. We need the Google car.
But
on
please
land.
don't drink and fly.
Yeah, don't drink and fly, everybody. That's too many PSAs, Angela.
I didn't. Yeah, I was just.
So something
whatever.
else you mentioned here is serodiscordant relationships. What is that?
Yeah, so what that is whenever one partner is HIV positive and then another partner is HIV negative. Some people think that they can only have sex with people or relationships with people who are of the same status as them. But so this is an interesting bit of information. So what happened is they had they did 2 huge studies and they had thousands of people who were part of this, and then they participated in like the hundreds of thousands of sexual acts. And then one partner was positive, one partner was negative, and nobody in either one of the studies transmitted HIV to their partner if they had an undetectable viral load. And how someone gets an undetectable viral load is by taking their medicine. So if they have HIV suppressed,
With
then,
the prophylaxis?
no, with HIV treatment.
HIV treatments.
Yep,
Okay.
so just regular pills for HIV. So if they take their medication long enough and well enough to where it has HIV under arrest, they're not going to transmit HIV to
It
their
has lower
HIV negative
transmission
partner.
rates.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Wow.
there were
So it's like managed.
Yes.
HIV.
So if it's managed,
Yes.
it can be controlled and not
absolutely.
spread.
Yep. Because
So it's become more like a
We should
chronic
still use a
medical
condom.
condition that
Absolutely.
people can live with.
absolutely.
And that was without protection?
That is without protection. So
They were doing it without protection.
They didn't
in the
use
study.
no PrEP, no PEP, no condoms, stuff like that.
That's
so
a roll of the dice
So
there.
yeah, so they participated in it, and then what they really wanted to do was they found, a lot of gay men were saying that, well, I've had sex with my HIV positive partner, but he, hasn't given it to me. So they wanted to take that real world situation and turn that into research. So they had huge studies, proving that, nobody got HIV. The disclaimer of this is that 6 people did contract HIV, but they did something that's called a genotype and phenotype testing. And then so they found out that they got HIV from somebody else other than their primary partner. So
Interesting.
they didn't get it from their partner who was in the study because they didn't have the same strain.
So somebody
of
else
HIV.
who was not being treated, possibly.
Correct.
So treated
Interesting.
HIV, it's a lot
Then,
safer.
yeah, you're
now.
not going to give it. And then I do know some infectious disease doctors here in the St. Louis area that if one partner is positive and one partner is negative, and they go to the doctor and say, I'm here with my positive partner and I want to get PrEP, the doctor sometimes refuses that because they say that it'll just kind of cancel each other out, and there's no point in putting, the one partner on pre-exposure prophylaxis if the partner's HIV is already under control by being undetectable.
But they might have another partner. So
Correct.
So you should still have it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and
They
something
could.
about this to kind of keep in mind is that that means that you can live a reasonably healthy life and
Yes.
happy life with
Yep.
HIV, being HIV positive.
How
Absolutely.
controlled is HIV now? What is on a day-to-day life? Like, we have those images from the 80s and 90s of people
Absolutely.
in bed with the,
Yes.
ashen
And then the
face.
scars on their
Yes.
face.
So is that
right?
is that the reality of HIV now, or has it changed?
It's a little bit different because we have those images of stigma that we've seen and grew up with, and then that's what we relate HIV to. But then we also have images now for people who are HIV positive of drug manufacturers trying to sell their drugs, and then you see people, these like hot guys with their shirts off going, yeah, and they're just living this wonderful lifestyle. Like, I'm about to go like jet skiing and all this stuff. So that's
You mean
what-
like the herpes commercials?
that-
where they're
yeah.
Well,
like,
you
oh,
always jet ski when you have herpes.
people with STDs always look like they are so happy on TV.
Yes.
That's
So-
that's the great thing about
So
those
then-
commercials.
yeah,
They're the
it's
weird.
happiest
Yeah,
people.
it's
weird.
They're living their life jogging and
Yeah. So people, whenever they become diagnosed, they're kind of caught. Like, what does this look like for me? Am I supposed to?
Those are two extremes.
Being
They're very
laying in the
interesting. Where's the
hospital
middle?
bed, or So they
jet skiing.
tend to try to find them place. Like, where am I with this? So try to help them navigate that is a little bit tricky sometimes, but we want to push people towards being healthy and happy, but then sometimes people get frustrated whenever they're not there right away.
Right.
So how do people work through that? Because while people are having manageable, healthy lives, I'm sure that at times it's difficult to find
Yes.
out that you're HIV positive.
Yes.
So what is that process like for a person?
So I believe that it's I use kind of the grief model, the DABDA if therapists talk, So there's denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance, and all those good things that go on.
So do a lot of people, it can feel like a death sentence. It's that fear
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they get
Yeah.
when they have a
absolutely.
diagnosis
That's still
of
scary.
It's
Yeah.
an incurable disease. You're
Yeah.
gonna have it the rest of your life, so
Yeah.
it's kind of scary.
I mean, I've had people bust out and cry before, and a lot of people cry.
I think I would.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, there's a lot of times whenever people think, I've had a potential exposure, and then I know my partner hasn't been taking his medication. So some people have already kind of geared themselves up for the news. So it's a little bit less dramatic for them. And then some people shut down. So some people will say, I know one time a person just pulled out a book and started reading it. I've had
Wait,
one-
while they were sitting right in front of you?
Yeah,
They're
and-
just like, oh, that's good news.
And then some
Reading.
people said,
People
well,
shut down.
my,
They do.
my landlord's here, I gotta go. And then was ready to walk out the door. We're like, wait a minute, do you understand what this means?
They just can't deal with that
I've had-
reality.
I've
Absolutely.
had
just kinda
clients
makes
pass
them-
out when they're dealing with too much grief.
Yeah.
Like physically,
Yeah.
they have to nap.
They have to process-
It's very unique.
Yeah.
They have to take the time to process it before they
Yeah.
can really talk about
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah. It's
So
a
again,
painful
meeting them where
experience.
they are, and then trying to move them forward and doing a lot of educational work. So making sure this person knows what HIV means today, and then once they get empowered with that information, it tends to look a lot different. So they're
Okay.
not, feeling so disempowered.
Okay. So a lot of people get to a point where they feel like they can have a healthy sex life and they can have relationships
Yes.
again. There are still people, we did talk about this that night, but there are still people that struggle with it, but they're usually the people that maybe already struggle with
Yeah.
things in life, right?
Absolutely.
Like maybe they already maybe struggled with depression. So that's
Yes.
just like add insult to injury,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So you can live with HIV and still
Absolutely.
have a happy life.
Yeah, because studies, again, I love studies, but
That's
Me too.
important. Me
So-
too.
Yeah.
Big
We
fans.
were big fans.
it says that you're
I
going to
actually
live,
read them.
as long as everybody else. So if you take your medicine, you eat healthy, do the things that you should do. Now, if you do unhealthy things like, get drunk and walk in traffic or whatnot, you're going to die immediately, just
That's
like
true.
everybody else.
Yeah,
So, it's important to make healthy decisions if you want to live longer, Also, sometimes people who are HIV positive, they tend to live longer than people who are HIV negative because they're engaged in healthcare already. They say that men don't go to the doctor, they go to the emergency room.
they have a diagnosis.
That has to be
Yeah.
broken and like
Yes.
flapping
Yeah, they
around.
say the same thing about people
And
with,
still be
with
inconvenient.
lots of different disabilities, like
Yes.
any back
Yeah.
problems or
Yeah.
chronic like arthritis.
Yeah,
Like, you
when
end
a
up
man
going to the
gets a
doctor
diagnosis,
more.
he ends
Yeah.
up taking care of himself a little better. So
Absolutely.
it makes
Because
sense.
something brings them
Yeah.
in.
See, guys, you need to take care of yourselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why actually men live longer when they're married too, because we're like, go to the
Yeah,
doctor.
uh-huh.
You
Yeah.
need to do this.
So you
Eat your
know,
vegetables.
I'm never gonna die.
He will never die. He's gonna
Because
live
of her.
forever.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
I make him eat healthy. We exercise.
Yeah. So what's the future for HIV prevention?
So the future is something very promising and exciting. It's called the injectables are coming, and what that is,
Injectables.
yes, and so basically, somebody who's HIV positive, what they could do is they could go to the doctor and get a shot in the arm every 8 weeks, and then they're have their HIV under arrest, or controlled, whatever you want to call it. And then the same technology is now being researched. It's in the 3rd phase trial for injectables for PrEP. So this means that people can go and get a shot in the arm, and then every 8 weeks they're, gonna
Instead
be,
of a pill every day.
yeah, because treatment compliance, what they call it. So sometimes people who are positive have barriers, people who are negative have barriers, and people with strep throat sometimes don't finish all their 10 pills or whatever. So sometimes we need to have other things in place.
People get
that-
distracted, they forget.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you can just give somebody a shot in the arm every 8 weeks, then hopefully
They're set.
it'll be like diabetic stuff to where you can maybe do it at home. That's what I'm hoping for.
Oh, wow.
And then just give yourself a little shot in the arm, and then you're going to be protected.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would work.
That's amazing. So we've come a
so-
long way.
Yes, a long way.
So we were talking about testing earlier. What if somebody doesn't have health insurance and they don't have the money to get tested? What can they do?
So they can come to us, and we offer free testing.
How can they get a hold of you?
They can call 314-645-6451 and then ask
They
to
get
speak
free
with
testing.
Matthew. Yes, free testing. We
Free
also do
testing.
free treatment.
What's the company name
They're
so people know?
St. Louis Effort for AIDS, and you could also go to Planned Parenthood. Another funny story is I was, doing a talk on a panel last week, and people were handing out cards outside. They were the protesters, the
Oh,
sexual
okay.
They're popular around
protesters.
here.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are.
Protests.
And and then somebody raised their hand and they said, I won't mention the organization, but they said, what about this organization? And I didn't know that it was a plant from that organization because they were probably like 19 years old or something. And they said, what about this organization? I said, well, that organization shames people. And they have a commercial on television here in the St. Louis area that says, come get tested. And they don't, judge me. I went there and I had such a great experience. But that's not the experience that we hear whenever we hear people in our office.
What is the experience you hear?
So what we hear is people being shamed for having sex and shamed for sexual behavior. If somebody has sexually transmitted infection, then they're shamed for that. It's religious based is
Well,
what
you
it
can
is.
say the name of the company.
Yes, it's
I'm okay with it.
It's okay.
It's Thrive.
Thrive.
So,
We already talked about
We
them.
already talk about
So,
them. We already
we
shamed
already
them.
know.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Thrive. We had somebody
Yes.
on to talk about Thrive who's trying to get them out of the schools around.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
yes.
she's
Don't
getting
worry,
a
you can talk
lot
about
of
it.
political clout right now
Yes.
for talking about the In God We Trust stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's not sex.
But that's
Yeah.
not what we're talking
No.
about. It's just
Yeah.
interesting.
And we know that shaming and doing all those things like that increases HIV
Right.
transmission.
Right.
The fear-based messaging that also increases HIV and sexually transmitted infections. And I mean, for me personally, I don't know how morally it can happen because what they'll do is they'll stand outside of Planned Parenthood with a clipboard and say, "Oh, well, your appointment's been moved right down the road to our mobile unit," and then so they'll trick people who
They're
are
gonna
trying to
trick
go get
people.
help at Planned Parenthood to go to their place about a block and a half
that should
down
be
the
considered
road.
kidnapping.
That's
You
kind of
think?
illegal,
Yeah.
isn't it?
They do it, and then once you show up, then they hand you a bunch of religious literature and try to suck you into doing what they
Don't
want
they
you
know
to do.
that doesn't work though? Like, if anything,
No.
it just makes people mad at you and hate you even more.
It does.
The reality
Yeah.
is,
Like, if I didn't
it
hate
works for
you,
some.
I would hate you at that point.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
right now I'm neutral, but
Yeah.
now that you've shamed me,
Yep. And then people a lot of
well,
times
here's
like,
the reality: is it shuts people down.
It does.
Like if they were going there to try to get,
get
an abortion or to get tested,
Absolutely.
if they get lampooned like that or protesters out there, a lot of times they just won't go.
Yeah.
Because they're scared of that conflict, of that
Yep.
abuse and that shame. They
Yeah.
don't want to deal with it.
Yep.
So it does work,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and because they're assholes. That's why it works.
Yeah.
So, shame and fear-based education
Yeah.
or programs of any sort are harmful.
But anyway,
They
let's
are.
not talk
People.
about that.
No, I know.
I need to clean my palate.
I
after
know.
that one.
I just want to make sure people know. No, like more comprehensive education,
Yeah.
more facts, more help. Those are the things that actually help prevent STIs and pregnancies.
Yes.
Shame and fear-based programming actually increases
Correct.
STDs
Yeah.
and teen
Correct.
pregnancies because people don't make smart decisions
Yes.
and they don't know how to make
Yes.
smart decisions.
Correct. And the research is there for that too. So
Yeah.
it shows.
I know.
that-
I've seen
yeah.
it.
She
Okay.
loves her research.
I love research
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
High
good.
five for research.
Alright.
Woo!
High five.
Information.
Yay. Reality.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we like to live in reality here.
Uh-huh.
Ew, it's
Yeah.
really important.
It's not fake
fun.
news or fake research.
No.
You know.
Yep. We live in reality.
What
Well,
reality?
I think that's all we got to cover, unless you have
Perfect.
anything else you
No,
want to say.
That's it. Go get tested and happy sex lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this has been the About Sex podcast.
Oh, before we go, I always do my plugs, baby.
Yeah.
So if you want to see a therapist real quick, then it's oh, am I doing it wrong? Sorry, babe.
You are.
It's www.therapistandstlouis.com. Go ahead, finish your thing. I totally screwed
We've
it
been
up.
talking with Matthew Swango. Be sure to add us on Facebook, review us on iTunes, or send us some questions at aboutsexpodcast@gmail.com. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm a therapist. I already told you guys.
Oh,
the
you're a
website.
therapist, are you?
And also, I forgot where I put my plug, so sorry, guys. But the other plug that I have, in addition, so I have my book out, Helping
You're
Couples
fine.
Overcome Infidelity. You can get that on Amazon, and I have a really cool webinar coming up with aamft.org, and it is called Alternative Lifestyles: How to Approach Kinky and Polyamorous Clients in Therapy. And so you can join me later this next month for my 102 class. I actually already did a 101 class that's
was
already
very
up that
popular.
people. It was so popular they brought me back
And
for
they're
an
paying her
advanced.
more.
Yes, they are. And so I'm doing an advanced class with them if you
That's
guys are
awesome.
interested. Okay,
Good
and
job.
yeah.
Who are you?
I am Angela Skirtu, a St.
And
Louis
I'm
Marriage
Josh.
Therapy.
Stay
Stay
kinky,
kinky,
St.
St.
Louis.
Louis.